online, on demand and here. Play Solihull Radio.
Thank you very much to Juliet Barratt. Thank you very much indeed to Martin Hall, also speaking. Before we start, I'm Harry Corbett, for those of you that don't know me. Before we start, and do forgive me for taking command in your office, it's very rude. Obviously the host does get 5 minutes to speak about what they are and who they do, but the rest of us, we have a measly minute. And I will start, and perhaps we'll go this way round. I'm Harry Corbett, Intelligence Forums. We really very much like bringing roundtables for people to find opportunities to collaborate, hear interesting stories, what we like to do.
Hi, I'm Mark Lavelle and I run a branding consultancy within Birmingham. I have done for the last 30 years. And we work with businesses who want to own their sector. Some of the clients we work with, Jaguar Land Rover, launched Symphony Hall, done quite a lot of overseas work with international companies. That's it really. So if you want to grow your business, then come to me.
Hi, I'm Martin Hall, head of office for Lockyers Commercial, which is an insurance broking business. Recently opened an office in Birmingham. This is a business that's based in Yorkshire. We specialise in the leisure, entertainment and sports industry, as well as the professions industry, so solicitors, accountants, architects. That office will grow over time and become a sort of a full service office when it comes to insurance broking.
My name's Tony Elvin, General Manager at Touchwood Shopping Centre, just over the road. I guess we see it as an important part of being at Touchwood to communicate with other businesses. We're one of the largest employers in Solihull, so it's really important that we interact with other businesses within Solihull and be an important part in that community.
Sorry to catch you on.
Sorry, apologies.
No, you're fine. It's good. It's great to have you here. Better now than not at all. And would you like to tell everybody who you are and what you're about?
Very quickly, Mark Panades. I'm a business angel, Obsidian Business Investments. I look to invest in Midlands-based businesses and try and grow them. That's me.
Peter Hall, Edge Creative. We're an independent creative agency based in Sutton Coldfield, about 18-20 staff, designing everything from business stationery through to exhibition stands and materials, and specialising in the digital world now in terms of design and build of websites, SEO programmes, social media marketing, etc.
Hello, my name's Jeff O'Brien. I run Solihull Radio, based over in Touchwood, and we're a community local radio station hoping to bridge that gap between the business and the sort of wider community so that they can see what we're all doing here in central Solihull.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Parks from Morgan Parks Recruitment. We have an office in Hockley Heath in Solihull, just opened an office in Birmingham. There's my card, there's my cards. Pick a card, anybody want a card? We deal with temporary to permanent members of staff, all sectors, from a one-day temp up to senior manager. We've got some quite big clients, one of them Legal and General in Solihull. So we do quite a lot of finance. We're a consultancy, we have no targets and no commission, so it's based on recommendation. Very different model to any other recruiter.
Good afternoon, my name's Asif Mukhtar and I'm from a non-surgical and private health clinic called Vanity Clinic. We're based not too far from here. We're also in the courtyard, and this is my second meeting.
Hi everyone, I'm going to indulge you a little because I am hosting this meeting on behalf of Thursfields. A lot of you know who we are and who I am. A little bit about me, I'm Pauline O'Rourke, I'm a senior associate, I'm a family law expert. I deal with all aspects of relationship breakdown, and that includes divorce, financial aspects on divorce, concentrating on the more complex divorces where there are businesses and there are trusts and pensions and property. I deal with unmarried disputes and interests in property and land, and I also deal with all aspects of children, contact disputes, everything except care work, although Thursfields does have a private company, separate private company which deals purely with care work. As for Thursfields generally, we are a multidiscipline practice, and we span 7 offices. And here at Thirstfields, we have disciplines across the board, all except criminal and immigration, focusing more on the company and commercial side, commercial property, commercial and employment and litigation, residential conveyancing, employment, and myself as family lawyer. We're a team of 2, and we have Edward here, who's our wills and probate solicitor. And again, welcome to Thirstfields. We're getting used to seeing quite some faces now, and Harry comes up, and we're very honoured for you all to attend once more. And I'm very honoured to hear from our guests, Martin and Juliet. Over to my next guest.
Hi guys, afternoon. Nigel Pugh from a company called Impact Aerial, and we are a professional drone services company. Normally at this point people go, anything to do with Gatwick? Absolutely nothing to do with Gatwick. We are very separate to the negative press you might have heard about drones. So our job is obviously to use drones for commercial inspections, for producing video, producing photography, but we do a lot of survey work. And we are one of the few drone operators who's actually approved to fly within the confines of Birmingham Airport. So we work very closely with the airport. It might be a business on the perimeter of the operating apron of the airfield, but it's nice to have a good working relationship with your local airport. We're Solihull based, so we need to maintain that relationship. But that's what we do, drone flying basically, and we fly the platforms for filming, photography, assessments and inspections.
Edward Jones from Thirstfields, colleague of Pauline's. I'm a private client lawyer, so I specialise in wills, estates, inheritance tax matters, and delighted to be here supporting Pauline and Thirstfields and the Intelligence Board. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Veronica. I define myself as a research consultant, and I now work for Intelligence Forum as a head of research, and also for Aston University. My background is on chemical engineering, but I'm moving into more technological field, into big data, data analytics, and other aspects of new technologies and how to take advantage of it.
Hi, I'm Tom O'Brien from Tom Wrote It. I'm a copywriter and I help businesses get their points across. So sometimes it might be a healthcare client that wants to talk about an illness in a way that's approachable. The other week I had someone in recruitment who was just sick of people hitting apply and not reading the job spec and wanted a blog on that. Sometimes it's property, so yeah, it's literally just helping people get their point across and explain why they're different.
Thank you to our 2 speakers. I noticed when I was doing a little bit of research that Grenade appears not only, I think, before Christmas in the fastest growing 100 businesses, but it also featured recently on one of the most innovative businesses, again, the Times. So one reads this business quite in a lot of the media. And we're really thrilled to have you in. So you haven't come to hear me; we've come to hear you. So I think let's talk about you and the business.
Solihullradio.com.
Okay. Hello, thank you for having me. You might not be saying that in 15 minutes' time, but anyway. So I'm Juliet, co-founder of Grenade. My background, very traditional really. So I worked in schools, was a teacher, head of sixth form, worked in a sixth form college. So I had a very sort of traditional background. Then I left teaching and worked for the Learning and Skills Council to try and sort of broaden participation for youngsters between the ages of sort of 14 and 16 in vocational training, because I did feel that there was very much like kids were being pushed down a certain route. Then I did some advisory work for the DFES as it was then, sat on a few sort of national committees, wrote exam papers, did some stuff for the exam board. So all very sort of boring, traditional sort of education. And then I met my partner, who we founded Grenade, but he had a distribution business before, so he was selling other people's products, sports nutrition products, to gyms and health clubs. He was importing them from the US. So I went to work into that business because I always worked really hard, but I was working hard for someone else, so I actually wanted to sort of work hard for myself. We decided really early on that we wanted to do our own brand, so our own sort of sports nutrition brand. So back in 2006, God, it seems such a long time ago now, we started buying up the IP, the intellectual property for the word Grenade, because we knew we wanted a global brand. We knew that we're quite eccentric people. We wanted something that stood out, that people recognised, and we wanted something that was very, very distinctive. So at that time, sports nutrition, and for those of you that sort of aren't aware of sports nutrition, sorry, I did turn that to silent, and I never get any phone calls. For those of you that sort of aren't aware of sports nutrition, it's those big black tubs of protein that you see in like bodybuilding gyms or like the GNC, the sports stores, so quite sort of intimidating to other people. But we realised very, very early on that everything looked the same, so everything was in very generic packaging, white tubs, all the names were really scientific. So at that particular point in time, sort of back in sort of mid-2000s, it was Zedracut, Zenadrin, Hydroxycut. People couldn't remember what those brands were called when they stepped outside of the gym or the health store. So we decided that we wanted something that was distinct. It didn't matter what language you spoke, where you were in the world, you would know what it was called by the look of the product. So Al used to do paintballing, and he was a bit obsessed with the military channel. So he came up with this idea of Grenade, and we thought, oh, God. The way our relationship worked is that basically he came up with the ridiculous ideas and I made them happen. So it's just like, yeah, just crack on, and you just worry about like sort of this, and I'll make it happen. So we invested really heavily in the tooling. We went to a local tool maker in Birmingham that we'd known of through sort of parents, and we said to him, look, we want a plastic container in the shape of a grenade. This was going to hold capsules, and he said, you must be mental. So he must have worked on that for about 6 months. It was a huge initial investment for us, and then sort of 4 years later we sold the distribution business. We had to work for them for a year as a handover, which was absolutely horrendous, and then we decided that was it. We were going to have a bit of time off, and we'd sort of park this Grenade idea. We went on this phenomenal holiday 2009, and then we got bored. So 6 weeks after retiring, we thought, right, let's do this Grenade thing. So we started looking at the formula. We went to a design company up in Bolton and said to them, look, we've got this plastic container, we want it in a box, blah, blah, blah. So we came up with like the concept. We went to a capsule manufacturer in North America, and we said, look, we want a weight loss product. We think everyone wants to lose weight at some time in their life. So, we want capsules. We want them to have loads of caffeine in green tea, green coffee. Make us the best formula you can. So I think we must have gone through about 15, 20 different variants of that, bearing in mind like we were the guinea pigs. So we were trying all sorts of stuff. Someone was making us go really hot. Someone was making I clean the house like from top to bottom in about 20 minutes. And, it was great fun. But it was all very sort of like we were trying everything. There were just the two of us. So, we didn't have a big team around us. And then we eventually launched in February 2010 in the UK with a weight loss product that we thought was phenomenal in a grenade-shaped container called Thermodetonator. We were in America when we launched. We had links with some of the wholesalers in the Midlands, like Tropicana, who are Sutton Coldfield Way, and also CLF, a company that are down south. And we said to them, look, we've got this product, here it is. We had the relationship with them. Will you list it for us? And they went, yeah, of course. And we thought, you know what, it's going to be a home run. It looks great. It's really quirky. It's called Grenade, for goodness sake. It's in a grenade-shaped container. People are going to love it. So we were sat in the US when it launched, and I'll never forget looking at the sort of sales figures, and it wasn't selling. And like we were thinking, excuse my language, shit, we've put all of our money into this business, and it's just not selling. So even though we had this initial idea that Grenade was going to be this business that we could do from wherever we were in the world, we very soon realised that actually we needed to get back to the UK and make it sell. So that was really the beginning of this hobby that turned into an obsession. So we did everything. So we did the trade shows, we did Body Power at the NEC, we did the magazine adverts, we were going around all the stores trying to sell the product. It was really sort of, we call it sort of like hand-to-hand combat. The big sort of turning point for us was Body Power, which was in May at the NEC. We decided that was going to be our first trade show. We had one product, this weight loss product in a grenade-shaped container. We didn't have the budget of the other brands, so what we decided to do is to hire a tank. So we've got a friend that's got a collection of like 100 tanks down in Northampton, and like we drove this tank into the NEC. It was like sort of fueled on like cooking oil and all sorts of smoke. It was absolutely horrendous. And that was our booth. So there were two of us. There were two of us there at the NEC at this huge fitness expo with a tank, a few products, and, you know, doing everything ourselves. That was a huge sort of turning point. We got noticed by the diet and wellness buyer from GNC in the US. So bearing in mind this was meant to be a hobby, we got an email about 3 weeks later saying, look, I saw your product at the NEC in Birmingham. Your marketing was fantastic. It really stood out. I see hundreds of products over my desk every day, but I love yours. I want to list it. We were like, yay. But then there were two of us. We didn't have a US product. We didn't have any distribution in the US. We didn't have an FDA import license. But we thought, you know what, we can do this. So we pulled out all the stops, and, you know, 11 months after launching, we were on stores, you know, on shelves in GNC in the US, which was huge. That actually nearly finished us, but that's another story that probably won't go into today. When we launched in the UK, we had this one product. People loved it. We decided that we didn't want to go for the bodybuilding market, which is what everyone else was doing. So we decided that we wanted to go for the men's health market. So we really changed the face of sports nutrition in the UK. Everyone else was using, I call them big men, small pants, you know, the bodybuilders. We went for a men's six-pack, you know, men's health look. So we recruited a team of athletes that genuinely loved the Grenade product. And we got them talking about the brand. This was really pre-social media, or very sort of early Facebook days. So they started to create this real sort of grassroots buzz about Grenade, the product, the weight loss product that worked. And then we had these guys with their tops off that looked absolutely fantastic. So there was a bit of a sort of snowball effect, really. We were sold in sports nutrition stores, in gyms, Metrex stores, GNC stores in the UK. Holland and Barratt were our first sort of retail customer. But we did get noticed by Tesco's. And we got an email from them saying, look, I can't ignore you anymore, you know, we want to list your product. And that was a huge sort of turning point for us, because that was our first real step into FMCG mass market. So before that, sports nutrition in the UK was really sold in specialist stores. This was Tesco's coming to us saying, look, guys, you know, we've seen your product, we want to list it. Even though it was going in pharmacy, that was the first real sports nutrition to go into sort of main estate retail. So running sort of concurrently with that, we started to get listings all over Europe as well, still very much sort of specialist sports stores. And then we started to get asked for other products as well. So we always wanted to be the Red Bull of sports nutrition. We wanted one product that worked, that was really the flagship product. But I think because the packaging looked quite gimmicky, and again, for those of you that are in the sort of branding game, there was a fine balance between a product that looked cool and edgy, but actually having a bit of credibility behind it. And we realised that to have sort of the credibility as a brand, we needed other products as well. So we started to invest in R&D time and bringing out other products in the sort of sports nutrition category, so pre-workouts, proteins. And then sort of early, it would have been late 2013, early 2014, we've launched our first bar, because we saw there being a shift from sports nutrition being sold in specialist stores to becoming more sort of normalised. So at this time, some of the big sort of food brands like the baked beans, like the Weetabix, they were starting to put protein on some of their products. So protein was starting to become a bit more normalised. We also knew that people were going to the gym, but they maybe weren't as obsessive as going to the gym as they were before. They just wanted to be a bit healthier. But also convenience was starting to come into play. So people wanted stuff that they could pick up at a petrol station, pick up at a convenience store or, you know, a newsagent, and eat it on the go. So a slightly healthier snack. So we started to move into bars, and we launched a protein flapjack. And then 2014, and again, I'm probably sort of racing through this, we got investment from Grove Point Capital, who are sort of pseudo-private equity firm, South African ex-Investec bankers, really, really clever guys. And we really liked them because they owned Rontec, well, they had shares in Rontec petrol station. So we thought, you know what, if we really want to break out of sports nutrition and we want to get listed in convenience stores or petrol forecourts, this could be a really great partnership for them. So in 2014, maybe the right thing to do at the time, in hindsight, we should never have done it. Not because they weren't nice guys, because they were, just because we gave away a majority, and that really we should never have done that. So we had investment from Grove Point Capital. We thought they would sort of introduce us to Rontec, but what we found out 2 weeks later is they'd just sold Rontec. So that was a bit of sort of a kick in the teeth for us. But we did that to de-risk a little bit. So the business was really cash rich. We didn't need the sort of the funds. But Al and I had put everything into this business. So we'd sold our previous business. We were down to 27 quid in the business bank account at some stages. Everything we had was almost on the line. And, we'd put in sort of 3.5, 4 years really, really hard work. We didn't take a day off for 4 years. We didn't take a salary other than, I think, about 500 quid a month to keep the accountant happy. I don't know why I looked at you when you said accountants, because you're branding. She looked at you. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, Mr. Touchwood, so I shouldn't have looked over that way. But yeah, so we literally didn't have a day off, didn't take a salary, so we had a lot at stake. So it was a really good opportunity for us to almost de-risk a little bit, take a bit of cash out of the business, but press the reset button and go again. Then came Carb Killer, which was our sort of it's our saving grace, really. It's our high-protein, low-sugar chocolate bar, and we've been working on this for 18 months, so this was pre-Grove Point's investment. We eventually launched in April 2015, and this was really the first protein bar that tasted like a proper chocolate bar. So the one thing that was really important to Al and I is, one, we only produce really, really great products that we would eat ourselves. Two, we would never mislead consumers by making ridiculous claims saying, eat this bar and you'll get thin, or take this product and you'll lose weight, because there's a lot more to it than that. But we genuinely don't want people to change their lives. We just wanted to give them a credible alternative to their everyday chocolate bar or their everyday flapjack that was just slightly higher in protein and had a lot less sugar. So, just giving people a healthier option. So we'd been working on Carb Killer for about 18 months. It was a protein bar that tasted like a chocolate bar. Again, the name was a bit risque. We couldn't make any claims, so we couldn't say low carb, because that was obviously a claim and we weren't allowed to say it. So we thought, because it's Grenade, we can get away with Carb Killer. We had a few sort of raised eyebrows to start off with, and it's just a bit like, oh wow, it's a chocolate bar and you're calling it Killer, but it worked, and it's the best-selling protein bar out there. We're taking on Mars now. I think we're the 4th best-selling confectionery bar in retail at the moment. So we're really sort of starting to shake up, disrupt that confectionery space, which is really exciting. As a result of sort of Carb Killer and the associated growth with that, we've been in the Virgin Fast Track for the fastest growing sort of privately owned companies. This is our 5th consecutive year, and we hope to get in for the 6th year as well. So not only are we growing in sort of mass market UK retail, so we're now listed in Marks and Sparks. Where else are we? Tesco, Sainsbury's, so all the sort of big retail players in the UK. We're also growing internationally as well, so we've got sort of listings in the US. We're building a team over there. We've just opened an office in the Middle East as well. We've got a huge market in Kuwait, China, Australia, so it's growing at a phenomenal rate. We're a Solihull business, so our office is sort of in Hampton in Arden. When we had the first round of investment, there were 4 people. When we had the second round of investment, which were Lion Capital, which was in February 2017, there were probably about 16 or 18 members of staff. They were a big sort of player in the sort of private equity world, so they own Jimmy Choo, Weetabix, Tyrrell's, some real sort of big players, and we liked them because they knew luxury brands. To date, there are just over 60 members of staff. 70% is UK-based sales, but we're growing, like I said, very fast internationally as well. But we do genuinely think it's just the beginning for the business. So we've got huge aspirations of being not only the biggest sort of sports nutrition sort of protein brands, but we want to shake up that confectionery space, because if you think about it, there hasn't really been that much change in confectionery in the last sort of like 60 odd years. So, they might do a new variant of sort of dairy milk, but there's been nothing there that's really sort of shaking it up. So we're really excited about that. We've got a huge piece of work to do with mass market retail in the UK, because we're educating and almost creating a space. So the sort of high protein, low sugar sort of chocolate area wasn't there before. So, they used to shove us in sports nutrition. Someone said to me, "Oh, you're next to Vaseline." I was like, "Oh, well, yeah." He said, "Why are you next to Vaseline? You should be next to chocolate bars." I'm like, "I know." But it's all an education piece. And I think some of the big boys, the Weetabix and the Heinz Baked Beans putting protein on their products is really helping us, because it's helping to educate consumers that protein is normal, whereas it's almost been seen as like a supplement for sort of bodybuilders, and you get so many people, "I'm going to get a massive take in protein." No, you're not. You're just going to recover and become stronger. So they're doing a great job of helping us to sort of normalise protein. But the biggest challenge for us is making sure that our listings in sort of UK grocery are in the right places. So you'll see us at Till Points and Marks and Spencer's. We're going to go in Till Points at Tesco's as well. We're growing quickly in all the service stations, all the petrol stations. So, I hope that we'll be everywhere. Whether people will notice us, I don't know, and that's obviously a huge sort of marketing piece that we've got to do. But, bearing in mind this sort of set out to be a bit of a hobby, and when Lion invested, which was back in 2017, they invested at 72 million. I think probably we'll get short of 200 next time, which, I don't know, could be in 18 months' time, it could be in a couple of years, I just don't know. So we've got huge aspirations of growth for the brand, so it's a really, really exciting time. I stepped away from day-to-day business in January because I didn't have a holiday for however many years, and the business was becoming less about the brand and more about a process. And I'm very much a brand person, so the most exciting thing for me is really taking a concept and seeing it come to fruition. And I feel most proud of seeing my product on the shelf. And that sort of you lose that a little bit as your business gets bigger. So my sort of thing now is I'm doing a lot of stuff with the Prince's Trust, so mentoring young people, trying to encourage them, entrepreneurship and starting their own business. I'm also looking to invest in some sort of startups as well, and doing some non-exec director roles, and some consultancy with sort of SMEs, some very sort of heavily branded businesses. And that's really, really exciting for me, because I get to sort of do the stuff that really floats my boat, but at the end of the day I can go home and know it's not my business, so I don't have to worry about it at 10 o'clock at night. And I'm going to travel. So I'm going around the world in October, which I'm really excited about. And I actually love going on holiday and not having to look at my emails every 2 minutes. That's me, that's Grenade. A sort of whistle-stop tour, really, but obviously open to any questions. And thank you for not falling asleep.
No chance of that. It's a really good story. It actually made me think, listening to it, it all sounds like it went incredibly smoothly. I'm guessing there must have been a few bumps in the road. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced during that process?
I mean, I'm always, I'm a very much, I'd rather be a has-been than a never was. And I've got a very good sort of belief in what we were doing. And I think if you start questioning yourself, that's when sort of challenges become problems. I think going into the US very early on was a big stretch. So we got product on shelf, but it's so difficult to make it sell. And of course we're a UK brand, and there were a lot of, even though we speak the same language, the whole sort of tone of voice and the market was very, very different. So we maybe a bit naively started to use like all the same marketing materials, and like in the US our guys look really small, so everyone thought we were a gay brand. And there are things like this that you just don't know unless you've got a team of guys, and girls on the ground over there. So I think maybe that international growth a little bit too early, that was a huge challenge. Growing the business, recruitment has been a huge challenge for us as well. So the one thing that's really important to me is the sort of Grenade DNA and that sort of cultural fit, because it is a relatively small sort of family business. You need to be a bit mad to work there, and we're very eccentric and very sort of hands-on up until obviously January, and that sort of rubbed off on people. So we've struggled with people that have come from very corporate backgrounds, but we've got a phenomenal team at Grenade. They all live and breathe it, they all love it, and the highs are higher, but the lows are less low if you've got a really, really good team around you. But that has been one of the biggest challenges. And personally, I think the work-life balance, I just haven't had it. But that's been my choice, and I've loved every minute of it. And I think I'd be lying if I sat here and said, yeah, I've got a really good work-life balance, and yeah, I can live the dream. But the work's been my baby, and I've just thoroughly enjoyed it.
Any further questions?
No, I would just comment that I love the story, because it shows that that there's ups and downs. That for any business that wants to start, it's not going to happen the first time. There's going to be changes
Yeah, definitely.
and challenges and
Yeah.
to evolve, and it's a really nice story.
Thank you. I mean, the one thing that's so important to me is that honesty, and especially working with young people, I think there's a real sort of, people expect to have holidays and new cars and things like that, and you know, we didn't have any of that. We were in a really fortunate position that we had the money from the previous business, but you know, we put everything into that, and that was our choice, and that's what we decided to do. And you know, I remember being on the floor in the office going, oh, I can't do this anymore, but like next day was absolutely brilliant. So it is a real journey. I'm thoroughly unemployable now, and I think most people that start their own businesses are as well. But you know, I just wouldn't change it for the world. It's been a real, it's been fun. It is fun.
So once you've got this world tour out of the way,
Yeah.
have you already got in mind what your next project's going to be, or do you think you'll be able to relax for a bit longer?
No, I mean, I get bored on holiday, so I'm not asking for jobs around the hotel. I'm just absolutely terrible, really am. But my initial reaction when I sort of left the business was to start another brand. But I think that would have been a huge mistake, because it wouldn't have been another Grenade, and I just would have thrown myself back in at the deep end. But, you know, the one thing I get is branding, and it really, really excites me. So I do think that there will be another brand. Whether it will be in the sort of food space, I don't know. But I quite like the idea of sort of disrupting another space. So I've got a couple of ideas, because I think we get bombarded with so many images out there, and there are so many sort of sectors that haven't really been shaken up, and I think it's time that they were.
Who should be watching out then?
Oh, I can't tell that.
Like
I
a
can't.
style.
If you see it, you'll know.
So when you say you're going into another, you're thinking about going into another brand, is it going to be in the sports nutrition market, or is it going to be something completely different?
I've got a couple of ideas. One's sort of in the food, sort of healthy snacking space, but obviously not competing with Grenade, and one's a completely separate one. But that would be more of a sort of branding piece, where it was just disrupting a space to prove a point almost.
So Grenade is still strong as a sports drink? That's still...
Yeah, I mean, drinks are part of our range. So we've got like protein drinks that are sold in Marks and... Well, they're going into Marks and Sparks. They're in Asda. But our main product is like a high-protein, low-sugar chocolate bar. So it's really healthy snacks.
So do you feel that the protein element, the marketing... You've got your pulse very much on marketing, and you know your market and your target market. What's going to happen when protein kind of falls out of favour a little bit, and it's going to be not the buzz?
No, I agree with you.
And you're going to morph your nutrition products into...
I mean, like, what we didn't want to do is do an Atkins. So, like, he was sort of, you know, no carbs. And then when that sort of went out of fashion, he struggled a little bit. I mean, I think he died of a heart attack, but that's another point. But we sort of pigeon ourselves as a Mr. North Face died of hypothermia, I think. So it's rather ironic. We pigeonhole ourselves as like a healthier snacking brand, so we don't just do high protein, low sugar. It's like a healthier snack. So if the market changes and protein falls out of fashion, then healthier could mean, I don't know, a different source. Yeah, definitely. So we've never been too niche, because we are aware of sort of change. Because food is fashion. It does change.
You've got the vegan fat.
Yeah, definitely. And again, you know, we've got a vegan bar, but we don't market it to the vegan market. We market it to the Grenade consumers that just might want a vegan bar, because Grenade and sort of veganism doesn't really go hand in hand. The sort of brands do compete with each other.
It's a bit like Richard Branson. If you actually read what he says about when he sets up Virgin,
Yeah.
he goes into an area to disrupt an area.
Yeah, definitely.
That's exactly what he
Yeah.
does. And I think once you found one, and you disrupt that market, you've got the model then to go into another market, taking that disruption with you, but knowing what works and what doesn't work from what you've actually gone through, which is quite good. And then the demographic and the product you're probably going to put into that space.
Yeah, and I think that's key. It's, you know, do your research, you know, find out who your consumers are. And, you know, the one thing I say to young people when they start a business, do you need that product or that service? Because you see so many businesses that start up and they're actually solving a problem that doesn't actually exist. And, like, just because they think it's right, it doesn't mean that it is a business. But, you know, we spend quite a lot of time with Sir Richard. You know, we've been to Necker and, you know, South Africa and stuff, and we were lucky enough to sort of be on the fast track for the last 5 years. And, you know, he's a phenomenal businessman. He's got a great idea. He follows it. You know, luckily he's got the finances behind him to sort of explore things like space. But he's got a phenomenal team around him. And the one thing that he's really done is stay true to his brand. And that's been sort of core to me at Grenade, is that whatever we do, it has to be Grenade, because I would never want to sort of become a vanilla brand. And I don't actually mind if people love us or hate us, as long as they've noticed us. I think it's really important that people have got an opinion about you.
I don't think Grenade would ever be vanilla.
No.
It's such. I think, like you said, it was that idea initially that sort of, you know, it is quirky, and it sticks. I mean, do you still, although you've stepped away, do you still obviously have a foot in that camp, and you're still looking and helping and advising in that non-exec way? Or are you still
not a non-exec with Grenade? So I've obviously still got a huge sort of financial investment in there as well, and you know, I'm going to do some consultancy work for one area of the business, but. You know, I don't want to be half in or half out. I'm an all or nothing girl. So I think for the business and for myself, it was best to sort of step away and focus on like the mentoring and sort of working with startups and, you know, just using what I've learnt from Grenade in other areas.
And Alan, is he still involved? Or
Yeah. So he's CEO, and like we've got a great team around us. So yeah, it's in safe hands.
A couple of things. I was really interested in your partner's initiative with the tank.
Yeah.
I just think it's kind of a crazy idea, but it was brilliant.
Well,
it's
worked,
crazy, but brilliant.
And like, you know, like I said, we just didn't have the budget, so we could either go there with some sort of half-assed booth that nobody noticed, or we could rock up with a tank. And actually now, 10 years later, people still say to us, you know, where's the tank? And like our corporate day last year was we took all of our suppliers to a tank place and we drove tanks and fired guns, and it was just great fun. But you know, the one thing that we've never done is offend people. So we've always had like that sense of humour and not taken ourselves too seriously, but we've never been, you know, we support the military and sort of with charities and things like that, so we've never been distasteful, and that's been really important.
So a question you is, if you were to define your values, which must be, I suppose, part of this brand word, but how would you define your values?
We just want like honesty, integrity, humility, definitely, but also we just want to give people a slightly healthier option. We just want them to enjoy their lives a little bit more. So we don't want people to change their lives. We're not preaching to anyone. It's just about giving them a slightly healthier option, a slightly healthier way to live their life.
Should you be looking for a role, Intelligence Forums would so like to operate in Stratford-upon-Avon.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Is there any more further questions? I think Martin has been very supportive of this forum, and I've said this before, but somebody did say to me that could we get the mayor in? That is Andy Street, and I wrote to Andy Street and I got a statutory reply back saying that he was kind of busy but would put my name on the list with the other 12,000 people that wanted him to come in and speak. And then I had a coffee with Martin and I said, well, it'd be great if we could get him, but I don't think we can. And he said, well, I know a man that can. And I think Martin knows quite a few people that can, because he put me in touch with the man that could, and within a week we'd got a date with the mayor. And that was from Martin Hall. Thank you very much. Martin.
I'm not a stalker or anything like that. Well, how do you follow Juliet? I mean, that was fascinating and really interesting. And again, it's just great to see a Solihull-based, you know, brand that's so successful. And it's quite interesting because Juliet and I just had a very quick conversation at the beginning of this, and I said what I was going to be talking about, which is not, you'll all be very happy to know, is about insurance, because you generally would be asleep. Thanks, Harry. I mean, I've been involved in Intelligence Forum since pretty much the start. Now, something that I've got involved with over the last sort of 9-12 months is a role which is an enterprise advisor. Now, this came from something that I was looking on LinkedIn. I'm a bit of a LinkedIn fan. And I noticed something in Birmingham, which was the Birmingham Enterprise Advisor Network. And this was an organisation in Birmingham that was trying to bring schools and school children and business closer together. Because some of you might remember 20 odd years ago, the government put a quango in that said, we'll make schools and business talk, and it never worked. The key thing of this was trying to find business people who had the time, the inclination to get involved in either 1, 2 or 3, not great groups of schools, but a few schools. And these people, these enterprise advisors, had connections in business. So it sort of sparked my interest, and I went back to where I live. I'm from the Tamworth area, I live in Drayton Bassett. So contacted the Tamworth, Lichfield and Burton councils, and they put me in touch with a company called, a not-for-profit company called the Careers and Enterprise Company. So they're a different type, but the same type of business as the Birmingham Enterprise Advisor Network. So as I say, not-for-profit, national business, and they are working with schools and business to try and drive that engagement. I got involved and actually became an enterprise advisor. Fortunately for me, I used to go to a school, I did actually go to school, in Tamworth called Rawlett. So I had that connection straight away with the school that I used to go to. So I approached them via the Careers and Enterprise Company, and basically it went from there. And it's a really interesting, fulfilling, great thing to get involved in. I'm not, as an official enterprise advisor, you're not sort of pushed in there and you're spending hours and hours of your time, because I have a day job, but I just happen to want to try and put something back. And I really, really enjoy this role, because what's clear to me is that, of course, putting it very simply, you have teachers that are teaching to a curriculum. The headmistress, headmaster, and the senior leadership team are all judged on what happens at the end of year 11. This is Ofsted. This is the way that they are judged, the league tables, etc., etc. So within that, you have 90% of teachers, on average, that have never really been out of school. They've been to school, they've been to university, they've become teachers, they've stayed in there, they've never really experienced or had that exposure in business. So they, as teachers, teach what they know. It is not a negative thing to say that they don't really understand what business wants. Now, equally, because I'm an insurance broker and I have lots of clients in different industries, you talk to your clients and you talk about their challenges, and it is recruitment, quality recruitment, etc., etc. And you ask them the question. And they say, well, we want more from schools. And you find out that business is focused on business. They're focused on what they want to do and what they're achieving. They would love to get involved in schools, but they don't know how to do it. So that's why this enterprise advisor is now in place. It's not national. It's a working project, and the Careers and Enterprise Company are working with 20 schools around the country, because this is a test that then will roll out after 2020, I think. So what is it about? This is not about what I do and anything. This is about the kids, because what we see and what I've seen is that kids can come out of education and they can because they're being taught and told that get a good education, get a good job, they believe that that's how it is. So they will literally, this is a bit of a generalisation, of course, is that they will go out with that education, put it in front of that potential employer and say, there you go, give me a job. But the employer, the business, wants more. They want the softer skills. They want other things than just that education. Is that person employable? Are they coachable? Can they work as a team? Can they learn? Are they interested in what that business does? All of these things that those kids weren't taught. Now, that's because they didn't have that opportunity of meeting with, going into a business environment, having those touch points through their school career. That's what I'm there to do, or at least to assist with, because of course you have a careers team within a school, and indeed there are sometimes that they exist in primary schools as well, but in secondary education or college education, this is a big job for them, and it's an extremely important job for that person, and it tends to be one person. The school that I'm working with, 1,200 pupils, 70 odd staff, a budget or of around 6-7. This is a £6-7 million. This is a really decent size operation, with one person trying to make that difference to give those kids, when they come out of education, the idea of where they could go. And this is one of the things that Juliet sort of mentioned, is that, you know, sometimes you need to give people the opportunity to see that life isn't linear, and teachers sometimes teach it that it's get a good education, get a good job, off you go. There are different routes out of school, different routes into business. It might be the university route, it might be straight into a job, it might be different types of ways into business. The apprenticeship route can sometimes be dealt with in a pretty negative way, but actually it's a really positive way of getting into business. But until they've experienced it, they don't know. So a few examples of what I've done since being involved with Rawlet is that, for instance, you have in Year 11, you might have some students that are involved in travel and tourism. They needed to talk to hoteliers. In leisure, in insurance, of course, I know quite a lot of those people. You bring them in, you help them to facilitate that. We had, again, Mr. Reid from Birmingham 2022, who I've got to know well. There was another project in a Year 8 class, so this would be 12 and 13-year-olds. We brought Birmingham 2022 into school. Now, of course, for Birmingham 2022, the Commonwealth Games, that's massive for them. They want that engagement. The school wouldn't have got that, so it's down to just that connector between the two. We've had solicitors in, we've had manufacturers in. Where I'm from, as I say, Tamworth, you've got a huge area of distribution, so there's Ocado there. There's all these other sort of businesses. So Ocado is, of course, a food distribution business, but when you go in there, the robotics and the science and the technology in there is astounding. You take in some of those kids, or you bring them into school, and suddenly what you go from, and I'm sure a lot of people around this table have been into schools, I always look at this, you get the sort of a third when you stand in front of kids. You get a third interested in you, a third that could be interested in you, and a third looking out the window because you're a talking head, why do I need to be involved with you? You're trying to bring them all along, not just focus on one. So when you can give them that outside connection to business, it really works. The plan is to try and make this happen from Year 7 and give every year group that touch point, because when they get to Year 10, before they're then thinking about their GCSEs, they've had such a good exposure to business, they've got more of an idea what they want to do. But equally, whilst they're studying, you're sort of helping them to understand that what I'm doing here, even though sometimes it's a little bit samey, it's a bit boring, we've all been there, we've all been, students, they think, but you know what, I've now got that ability to understand what I'm doing here does apply out there. And for me, what it builds is confidence in these kids, it builds resilience, it builds that entrepreneurial sort of spirit. They might go off and do their own thing, start their own business, go in elsewhere. And I think one of the things that I really did take away, which was interesting, there was an event, as I say, lots of different types of events. I went in and thought that I would be totally engaging about insurance and make insurance really exciting. I failed. But one of the things that really, really woke me up was that on that particular day, we had the HS2 engineers, the younger guys. These were all in their 20s. So these have been on the various sort of fast tracks in. As soon as these kids that had that job in HS2, engineering, girls and boys, engineers, when they stood in front of these kids, you could see they just lit up, because these were in their 20s. These kids in the school were in their sort of 15, 16, and that's that connection. They thought, right, it isn't a 48-year-old bloke in insurance trying to be funny. Now I get it. So when I'm now going out, I do try. When I'm going out to my contacts in business, and over time you do meet and get to know some very senior people in businesses, I go to my clients and say, can you support this? Yes. Right, next one is, I don't want you because they don't want us. Can you give me your 20 or 30 something stars? Because they're the ones that will come into school and really engage with those kids and they will listen and they will learn. And that's really what this role is about. And I said to Harry, look, I'm quite passionate about it. I don't have to spend lots of time there. It's just offering them something different. And when you can bring someone in and see these kids that are really trying their best, and the teachers are really trying their best to give them something that makes life after school and what it's going to be like in the future some relevance, it's a brilliant, brilliant thing. And it's just perfect that Juliet was here because, of course, as an ex-head of sixth form, yeah, and an ex-head of sixth form, it's for me it's brilliant. I'm sure you've had your experiences with these things as well.
I got into trouble for doing a bit in the press about the fact that kids should do national service after school, so they should work for 3 years and actually save up and get a bit of work experience, and then the government should match whatever they put into their university and stuff, because I do feel kids are sort of go off to college just knowing, or uni, thinking that that's what they should do. And like you said, this sort of vocational route is almost seen like, if you don't want to follow the traditional route, this is what you should do. And I didn't have any education, sort of any experience outside of education when I was teaching, and I was like working with 18-year-olds, and all I could talk about was what I knew about. And I think if I'd have gone back into teaching now, I'd be an awful teacher, but at least I would know about what is out there and what sort of skills employers are looking for, and it's not necessarily what they've got on a sheet of paper. And when we were recruiting at Grenade, I was always like, CVs are great, I just don't want to see it. Tell me about you. And that's the most important thing. It's that sort of cultural fit and who they are as a person and what floats their boat, not what they've got on a sheet of paper.
And that's what you're trying to sort of reassure them and just say, look, it's okay just to be you. Your education is, of course, it's hugely important, but it's more than just that. And giving them that sort of, as I say, confidence, resilience, interest in what the future brings, all of those things that teachers cannot teach. Give them those skills, and then obviously they will fly, or it will help them to fly.
Thank you. Does anybody have some questions?
I do have a question about how you're saying you can give the idea to the kids that what are the type of challenges for the future in employment in terms of being technology a huge replacement for the labour market for humans, and how important it's going to be able to perform things that computers cannot, and how that is tackled in your if
it's a really, really good question, because it does come up. We're talking about potentially year 7, year 8 kids, so these 11 and 12-year-olds, that when they come out into the workplace, some of the jobs that they're going to get, we don't even know exist or will exist. And equally, there are some jobs that won't be there. But we obviously will say this to kids, my own opinion is that, of course, there will still, we will have jobs, they might just be different. But as Juliet just said, it is about trying to give those kids just a wider understanding of what it is to be out there and what it's going to be like. Because, yes, I've experienced this and I've seen this, is that teachers, well, of course because they think it's in the best interest and they're doing it from the right place, push them or persuade them down a university route or this sort of route, when in effect that might not be the route for them. I met someone last week, again an apprentice solicitor working in a really good firm. He won an award at the Birmingham Legal Awards for the best apprentice solicitor, and I just spoke to him and he was brilliant. He said, yeah, I was a good student, I was going down that route, and I thought, do you know what, I had the confidence to say, no, I actually want to go in to business. The apprenticeship route is good for me. And once the teachers got it, because he was a bit of a high flyer, they then switched on and supported him, and he's just flying now. He's the sort of guy that I want to bring in, and not just into my school. If this, I hope it does expand and go national, These are the sort of people that need to go in and say, it doesn't have to be one route. There are so many different options.
We ran a debate in Leeds about a year and a half ago, and that was, is the educational system creating a labour force fit for purpose, whatever that is. A very wide topic, isn't it? Can I ask for 3 points of view on that? And I'd like to ask your point of view on that, what you're seeing. Obviously, you'll give your point of view, Juliet sees, and also, actually, Bonnie, you're also seeing a lot of people coming across through your door. So, what's lacking, and what are the good bits, and what are the bad bits?
I think there's several things, going back to what you said, Victoria, about the technology. The trend really for, say, the next 15 years, the job market's going to change quite rapidly. So if you think about it, in the olden days, there was a job called the knocker-upper. There was 1,000 and something knocker-uppers who would go around and knock up and wake people up. Technology took over by an alarm clock.
I'm glad that's all it was.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah, my mind was going somewhere else.
Back in the room, please. The alarm clock. So that changed. Bring us right now to now. Technology moves quite quickly. In the next 15 years, the job market will change quite dramatically. The ageing population, we're getting older. It's not the baby boom anymore. So companies will need to look at more flexibility. People that are older, very experienced. There'll be a lot of freelancers, a lot of contractors. So through a skills market, or I think a lot of contractors. Going back to Juliet's point about national service, I think they should all go from school, A levels, a year's experience. I find it's about people's work ethic or lack of.
One point I'd like to make about the youngsters. I've got a 16-year-old lad, and I once a month I take him and his three of his friends to an event in Bristol. What's interesting there is we have an hour and a half in the car, just talking to 4 16-year-olds, and an hour and a half in the car on the way back. I find it quite fascinating. But the one thing that you can't pull the wool over these youngsters' eyes, the only thing they're interested in is authenticity. When they talk about it, there's no script, there's no buzzwords, there's no he's real, she's real, I mean, your speech today, there was no notes. It's all in here, it's all in here. Whatever you are, you're authentic, aren't you? You are the best version of you. And that's what kids, a 16-year-old girl or boy, that's what they buy into. They see people, whether it be on social media, TV, Instagram, whatever it is, and they just want to know whether someone's fake or whether someone's real. And I mean, obviously I'm talking about 16-year-olds now, but I'm sure if you go even younger, 11 and 12-year-olds, I'm sure this is what they're. And as we get older as well, we've got to be careful that we don't treat them as kids, because they're much brighter than we were when we were kids. And also, I think one of the reasons why they identify more with the 25-year-olds or whatever is because they're not using all the things that they've learnt their whole career. I've found as I've got older that actually you don't need to present or sell or anything. You just need to be you and talk about your product, your brand, your whatever that may be, and people will judge for themselves what it is.
And I think
you've also got to be socially relevant now, because I want to talk to your point. So I think you and I should have a conversation. So for those of you who don't know me, my business is flying drones, and we do various things with drones, obviously flying them, inspecting, photographing. So we've actually got a program running called Drones for Schools. So we go into schools and we educate them about what a drone can do, but more importantly, what a drone career could potentially be for them. So recently we've been doing some with Worcestershire, where we had 4,500 7, 8 to come along, and we had basically a stand and talked about what the drones could do. What was quite interesting was you could tell that a lot of them weren't really that interested. They're sort of glazed over, we have conversations. I had a simulator running so people could fly the drone and see what it was like. I thought it needs to be socially relevant, it needs to be relevant to what they know about. So I started talking about Drake. Now Drake uses the very same drone that we use for producing his content. Immediately the whole conversation changed. We know who Drake is. He's a social influencer, he's a rap artist, he's a very, very wealthy person. But he's used drones to promote his business. All of a sudden, there was a different level of understanding. And then we could talk about the work that we've done with some companies. So the government commissioned it was actually on behalf of Innovate. So there are 5,000 people in the UK, like me today, professional commercial drone pilots. And in 2018, the government said, we need to look forwards, we need to try and work out what's going to happen with the new drone economy. And they said in 2022, there will need to be 167,000 people like me. That's only 3 years away. Your direct career path for a role in the drone opportunity is directly in front of you. And I think a lot of these students have started to recognise that we were talking about new careers, new jobs, things that didn't really exist. You could say a drone pilot, a drone career, is something that doesn't properly exist today because it's so unheard of. There isn't a curriculum, there isn't a stream, you can't go into college and become a certified drone producer, whatever.
In 5 years' time, that becomes something
Precisely.
completely different. As I said, technology, I know I use the analogy of the alarm clock, which is the real extreme, but technology is making us lesser jobs, or almost like the middle market.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen.
This STEM. So
Yes.
science, technology, engineering, math. You know, that is where not just everyone, boys, girls, everyone needs to understand that that's where it's going, and that's fascinating. But coming back to what Mark just said, bang on. The authenticity is you can watch kids because they are smart cookies, and which is why I love it, because what you're doing is you're taking that talent and it's not being suppressed. You're trying to just give it the opportunity of going somewhere. And as I say, you know, when you have those HS2 apprentices in their 20s who didn't have any notes, they were just telling these kids their experience. They lit up because they could see this is not, again, back to the 48-year-old insurance broker, this is not 30-odd years away. These guys have done this now. These are intelligent people. They are where we were, and in a few years I could be there. Or yes, I could be working, you know, with a drone, or be in a fantastic, incredibly different brand, and working with a load of people who are obviously great fun, you know. And that's what people want. What I'm seeing is that, and this is from my business contacts as well, is that the future workforce isn't just about job, salary, pension, great. It's now an experience thing, isn't it? They want more from their 9 to 5 or their 8 to 6, whatever it's going to be. And I think that's great. That's a way that it should evolve.
That's what brand is. Sorry.
Do you just want one? Because I think that it goes deeper than this. I think the whole sort of education system in this country is completely, massively outdated. As with everything to do with the political system, we've got a load of old people there that have never done any of this, that are sitting there procrastinating, that we're not joining up. So all these pockets, these initiatives are all fantastic. The work the Princess Trust does is fantastic. But, you know, there needs to be some sort of consensus and some sort of working party that doesn't sit and deliberate for 2 years and then do a bloody review and then wait another 5 years to actually just get shit done.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and that's why you need business people there that are willing to sort of say, do you know what, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not going to say that we can solve this in a year, but we're going to try stuff. If it works, we'll carry it on and we'll roll it out. We just need to be proactive in this country.
The problem is, I think, and I see it a lot, obviously I'm in recruitment, I've been in recruitment a long time, it's, and I'm all for, you say, it's people out there and young people out there, they're very entrepreneurial, they want to start their own business, and that's the way they want to go. Unfortunately, I also see a lot of people that want something for nothing. And I sit opposite people who come out of university and I'm like, no, you know what? You got here 10 minutes for my interview, you were late. I'm never going to work with you. It's all down to that. People's attitude. As Juliet said, I can send you a CV quite easily. Cold piece of paper.
It's those softer skills that
You
you exactly what you
train
said.
kids for a job and train them this holistic 360, these life skills, these
absolutely.
employability skills, and that should be more than a general studies A level or whatever they tried years ago. It should be
Being
the
bothered.
skills that kids are leaving with, not just training for a job.
But it's attitude, being on time. If you're going to ring somebody, you ring them back. You know, it's all of those life skills.
There are lots of different examples. I mean, one particular client of mine said they sat there, they had a great CV, they had a great education. I asked them what we did, and they didn't have a Scooby-Doo. And they didn't use what everybody... They didn't even do their background checking on what that business did. And that's a soft skill that a teacher would never teach. But that's something that if you're going to go and talk to someone, if you're going to go for an interview, do some research off your own back. Don't be told to do it.
Can I ask 2 more statements or questions? I know Tony's got one before we close out. Tony.
Just a quick one. We were talking about we need more employability skills for those students. There's some great stuff happening at Solihull College with that. Mick Westman at Digital Innovators is focusing on that and what he's doing and transforming some of these students that would have otherwise lost their way is fantastic. So I think a lot of the things that businesses are saying, there are pockets of education that are listening and making a difference, and that's a good news story in this immediate area.
Anybody got a statement or a question or?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the fact that universities now the education is becoming more and more specific, but actually we should do exactly the opposite, because we should form a person to be adaptable, to adapt to the new challenges, and which we don't know what they are yet. As you mentioned, the drawing a specialist, and so we should train people to know the very basics so that they can become on the background, very strong background on a specific STEMs and science, but not specific on a certain things that's going to become.
Defunct. Yeah, we're living in exponential times, aren't we?
Exactly. And the other thing is to also form people in order to not be able, because information is not important anymore. Information is on the internet. What we need is knowledge. And what's the difference between information and knowledge, and how to get that step?
Can I thank you very much, Veronica? Can I thank you all for coming? It is really valued and appreciated. Pauline, thank you so much. Popped out. Thank you so much for hosting. This is such a good place to meet. Thank you very much. Martin, thank you very much for speaking. Mark, thank you for your support. Pete, Tony, Juliet, thank you so much. Can I give them a big hand?